All right, so in transformations, basically what it is to move things over. So looking at the first example, I'm gonna move everything 1 unit to the right and 2 units up. So the way I move this, I'm gonna move the corners. So if I look at J, I'm gonna follow my corner J. I'm gonna move it 1 to the right and 2 up. So my new point J is gonna be there. But once I move it, I'm gonna call it J prime. So like a little apostrophe, but we call it prime. Yes.
So you're just gonna move the J and you're gonna move that.
I'm gonna move all the corners.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna move all the corners. So right now, for example, I'm gonna move K. I'm gonna move it 1 to the right and 2 up. So that gives me my point K prime. And then I do I. That gives me I prime. And then I'm gonna do L. That gives me L prime. So I'm just gonna move the corners. I connect them, and it should look like I move everything 1 unit to the right and 2 units up. Right? The image should look the same. Shouldn't change. Another way we can see it is kind of like question number 2. We can use this type of notation. X plus 2, when we think of the x-axis plus, that means we're moving to the right. Right? We move plus on the x-axis. We move the x-axis is going to tell us right or left. Plus tells us to the right. Minus tells us to the left. Now on the y tells us up or down. Y plus 3, it's basically telling me move up 3. So I'm gonna move my corners 2 units to the right and 3 up. So I'm gonna do G, 2 units to the right, 3 up. That gives me my point G prime. I move F, 2 to the right and 3 up. That gives me my point F prime. And the same thing with H. That gives me my point H prime. I connect my dots. And it looks like I moved everything 2 units to the right and 3 up. So translation means to move. Any questions so far? No? On the homework, well, for the quiz on Friday, I'll give it to you guys like this, and you guys will have to graph a picture. Now, for the homework, we cannot graph. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you guys for coordinates of a specific point. Like question number 1, I might ask you guys, give me the coordinates of J prime. So coordinates of J prime are the points 1, 3, and that's all you guys are answering. Right? Because if you guys can do J prime, you guys can definitely do all the other points. On the quiz, yes, you have to do them all and graph them. On the homework, I'm only going to ask you for guys one specific point. Now, another way you guys can see these, it's something like these. Now, these, we're using vector notation, which in vector notation is supposed to be like they look like these, like inequality signs. It just didn't type like that. The -2, I'm thinking of x minus 2, I'm moving to the left. +4 on the y side, y plus 4, that means that's moving up. So my image, everything's going to move 2 to the left, 4 up. If I do x, I'm going to do 2 to the left, 4 up. That gives me x prime. If I do w, that gives me my w prime. If I look at y, that gives me my y prime. Connect my points. Once again, the image should look the same. I move everything 2 to the left and 4 up. Okay, so that's another way of notation. But then since we know how to do graphs, we're going to be able to do these as well. It says write the rule to describe each transformation. So whenever we're going to write a rule, first of all, we have to say what type of transformation is it. And I know right now we're only dealing with translation. So we're going to have to type in translation. I know it's the only one, but later on, once we have more, like rotation, reflection, dilation, we have to get them all mixed. So we have to type, first of all, translation. And then it seems like on my x values, it seems like I'm adding 4 to every x. So I'm just going to write x plus 4. Right, if I'm looking at my x values, we're adding 4. Now, when I look at the y values, it seems like I'm not doing anything to the y's. So I'm just going to leave my y alone. And that's basically what I'm going to type in. So translation, because we have to say which type it is. So translation, and it seems like we're adding 4 to the x's and we're leaving the y's alone. If we want to look at it as a graph, we're moving everything 4 to the right, and that's it. We're not moving up or down. So that's what it looks on values, on coordinates. Any questions on these? You guys want me to do another one of these? Yeah? All right. Let me change this question. Let's take a look at another example. So once again, we're dealing translations. So I'm gonna go translation. I pick the x values. Any x you see, we're gonna subtract 4, right? If you look at the x values on every point, we're subtracting 4 from each. Now, if you look at the y values, it seems like we're adding 1 to the y's. If you look at the y values, whichever y value you look at, you're adding 1 to each y. So that's basically what I will write. Translation x minus 4, y plus 1. Don't forget to, whenever you guys type it, there's a space after the comma. Does that make sense? I still see faces that not really. Let's take a look at another one. If I look at this, it says write the rule. So I'm going to write translation because we're dealing with translation. I'm going to look at my x values. 2 becomes 1, 3 becomes 2, 4 becomes 3. It seems like I'm subtracting 1 to each of them, right? I'm looking at my x values. Now, when I look at the y values, -4 becomes -2, -2 becomes 0. So it seems like we're adding 2. So we're adding 2 to each y, right? Same thing happens to every x, same thing happens to every y. Does that make more sense now? Okay, cool. Then we're also going to see it something like these. Find the coordinates of the vertices of each figure after the given transformation. So I'm going to subtract to every x, I'm going to subtract 5. To every y, I'm going to add 1. So the coordinates of u prime are going to be -2, -2. Right? I went x minus 5, I subtracted 5 from x, and I added 1 to y. If I look at my coordinates of v prime, I have to subtract 5 from x, so I get 0. I have to add 1 to y, I get 0. If I look at my w prime, I have to go x minus 5, so I get 0. I have to go y plus 1, so I get -2. Right? To every x, I subtracted 5, according to a rule, and to every y, I added 1. And if you see, that's what I did to each. Yeah? If we're looking at it as a graph, I'm moving everything 5 to the left and 1 to the 1 up. But in values, I'm subtracting x from the 5. I'm subtracting 5 from x, and I'm adding 1 to y. Once again, on the homework, I'm only going to ask you guys for one specific point. On the quiz, yeah, you guys have to do them all. Any questions on these? No? Just to practice even more, just a different way of seeing it, I'm going to give you guys something like these. I'm going to ask you guys for the coordinates. And on this one, I'm saying 3 units left. So when it comes to x, that's x minus 3. That is to the left, 3 units left. Notice it doesn't say anything about up or down. So that means we're leaving the y alone. Right? We're just subtracting 3 from x. So my coordinates of d prime is going to be -2, -4. Subtracted 3 from x, and I left my y alone. If I look at e prime, we're going to get -1, 0. Subtract 3 from x and leave your y alone. If I look at f prime, I'm going to get 1, -2. What do you guys get for g prime?
2.
2, -5. Perfect. Subtract 3 from x and leave your y alone. Okay? We're good?